So I'm here with Emre, who's the CEO of NRM, and Emre has been writing an interesting book that really incorporates a tremendous amount of his wisdom, sales experience, and just being a CEO of a company that operates, across the United States of America. And what we have here is a booklet that incorporates a few of his chapters. So before we get started, Emre, maybe we'd love to give you a few words on what made you have the ambition to start, putting your thoughts on paper and sharing it with the world.
Well, the easy answer is I spent the last 50 years studying ways to become a better person and be better at whatever skill. And over time, I realized that you can read all about stuff, it's information, but to be able to deliver the value, practice, and connect with people, it isn't until you connect with people that you can actually transfer trust and be able to get people to respond to you in a way that you're there trying to help them as opposed to trying to sell them something. So this booklet actually came from another book that I'm working on, which is called The Inner Game of Sales. And this one here is The Inner Game of Life. And to me, this was important to share with my employees.
So it's great, Emre. So, what I really found very fascinating, and also someone who has read this booklet before anyone else had the chance to read it, what really stood out to me was your principle number 7, which was on page 18, which is building unshakable confidence. And what you talked about was in the booklet where confidence isn't something you're born with or without. It's something you build through your 3 pillars. And, I'd love to maybe have you explain a little bit about, what are those 3 pillars and how does an individual incorporate that into their life?
Well, first of all, I see it's one of those things you question yourself. Who am I? What am I about? What am I trying to achieve? And what's missing? What are the gaps in my life that enables me to recognize where I'm good, where I need to learn more, where I need to practice some skills? So it's understanding who you are. So a lot of it is just having that attitude of, I'm going to seek this out until I get it. Never give up. So I always tell people I'm a perpetual apprentice. I'm always learning something new. And I meet people, I learn something from, whether it's a Tony Robbins or somebody else. My initial guru, which was Prince Natan, I call him Prince Natan, because he looked like a prince.
Wow.
And he was a yogi who taught me a lot of these principles, because you can, again, read about them, but until you internalize them, like they're yours and you own them, and you fully understand them without having the fear of somebody's not going to get it. And we're equal beings on this planet. There's no, this guy's better than me. You never look down on anybody, and you never have to look up to anybody. And some of that I've learned from other teachers as well.
So what does it mean, like, with the attitude?
Well, the attitude, there's no real threat to your security. So you have this inner security that you also want to build up, because one of the chapters is about inner security. So the attitude is there's no real threat. So if you're making a sales call, which this was kind of came from, there's no threat from the customer.
You feel that salespeople have that feeling that
they're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of being not good enough or not whatever. I don't know enough. Somebody's going to ask me a question I don't know the answer to. That's easy to explain.
Why do you think they feel that?
They haven't had that internal, build up that internal security, and where they just connect with people. The main thing I feel is connecting with the customer to where they get, we're on the same page. We communicate on 3 levels. We communicate with words, with actions, and with feeling. So feeling is something we both communicate with without even realizing, because it all happens subconsciously.
But that attitude that you talked about, so like for that individual, right, when you're saying, well, there's really no real threat to your worth or your security. So does that mean that, at the end of the day, that what you fear is probably not a fear? You're just making up that fear in your mind that's preventing you from doing what you want or you should be doing.
Well, it's your definition of what to fear. Who decided what to fear?
So how do people think about when they have a feeling of fear, what does that mean?
Well, you have to learn these principles. Number one is no real threat to your security, right? Rejection is not bad. It's just information. It's just giving you feedback. Oh, this person doesn't want what I have to talk about. Then you can make a decision to ask more questions like, why did I get rejected? What is it that I'm communicating? Because at the end of the day, you're communicating whether you realize it or not. So if somebody's rejecting you, they read something from you. The first less than a second, people get who you are. Now, if you don't connect at the same level, there's a potential of rejection because the other person thinks, this guy wants something from me. He wants to sell me something. Now you get that resistance. If you can get past that to where that person doesn't feel like it, I've heard it said get commission breath.
Yeah.
Don't have commission breath. Just figure out that you're there to help. And if that's what you're trying to do, that's it. Then
it's
you're there to help. Okay, that's really the main thing.
And I'm sure, and I know this, that, when you have a feeling of competence, it can impact your levels of confidence.
Absolutely. So
what does that mean? Your second pillar talks about, competence. So
well, if you're selling something, let's say you're trying to convince or influence somebody, you better know your craft. You better know what it is. So in the competence, you have deep knowledge. So you better know the product that you're selling or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that you can communicate to the customer how it's going to impact them if they make a decision to go forward or maybe it's not good for them. You have to help them decide. So in sales, rather than selling, we help people decide whether or not something's good for them or not. So it's that piece. And then you have to trust your own ability. In other words, you built that confidence of, the product, the problem it solves. And if you don't know how to communicate that, then obviously you have a problem. So you have to practice until you master it internally.
And also what you talk about is that confidence comes from knowing that you can handle what arises. So it's always thinking about that whatever happens, I can handle it. I can take care of it. Yep. Or if I'm unable to take care of it, I can bring people in who can help me. But I'm always seeking, and I always know that I can do it and I can always take care of it. But do you think that approach is what's necessary when it comes to kind of developing that level of confidence where nothing can faze you?
So part of this, when I said you're communicating with the other person, that also means they're communicating to you how they're coming across. Mm-hmm. So you have to feel them. That means you have to be an active listener, not just the words, but how it makes you feel when you're talking to somebody.
Interesting.
So when you feel them, you can better communicate your feelings to them because now you've made that connection. So the connection is the key. Once you connect, information
will be transmitted.
It's transmitted. And some people, I've been in situations where somebody gets me, it's like, okay, where do I sign? I'm ready to buy. Because they get it. Yeah. They get why I'm there. They get what it's about. They've done a little bit of research about who I am. And so having clear goals of what's the outcome you want.
Which is your pillar 3.
Yeah, pillar 3 is you have to know your want. What do I want? What does my customer want? You have to feel that. See the path forward and trust the process. So you develop the process. No different than you develop the ability to drive a car. That's a process. You don't have to think about driving anymore because you've got that process down. You can think about it, whatever. You can drive automatically. So when selling or let's say trying to influence somebody or giving information, becomes so natural, like when you're driving. You have to own it from that perspective. And so the attitude, you apply it for pretty much anything, whether you're dealing with spouse, children, whatever. The same principle applies. So having that as being, competence is studying, learning, deliberate practice, learning from mistakes, continuous improvement. That's why I'm saying I'm a apprentice.
Yeah.
I'm a perpetual apprentice. I'm always learning. I'm listening. I'm listening for clues, because the world is always teaching me clues. Oh, if you'd have said that way, or if you'd have just explained this part, you would have got a better outcome.
Yeah. But also, like you talk about, like confidence comes from clarity, and I think in general that a lot of people don't understand is that the more that if you want to exude that level of confidence in what you do or the deal that you're trying to close, thinking about like what does that mean, clarity, right? If you think about it, so is clarity a sense of the boxes are checked and this is like it's a checklist to get to clarity, or is clarity more of an ambiguous state that's always changing with the conversation? Like, so what does that mean when it comes to?
When you said state, so you have to be in the state of clarity. You're clear on who you are, what you know, and what you don't know. You can't fake it. In other words, you can't fake somebody into believing something, maybe for a little bit. You can't logic somebody into believing it. So it has to be a deep feeling. Once you get to that, you establish a level of trust. Once you establish that trust, things go much faster. Then the person you're talking with starts asking you questions like, wow, this person sounds like he could help me. Hey, can you guys do this? What about this? What about that?
Mm-hmm.
Now they're giving you that in their head or mind, whatever their heart. They've already kind of bought it because they're getting a sense that this could help them. They just want more clarity from their side.
Yep.
So your clarity needs to be listening so that you can respond to their questions. Yep. and deliver that clarity. And
this topic that what we started discussing in the beginning, everything's about building that unshakable confidence, right? And I think about it from a perspective where that's always a continuous level of evolution within that person. But more importantly, it's all about that self-talk and what do you believe you are? Who do you believe you are? But also where it gets interesting, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, it's where you believe you're X, but let's say you have a vision of yourself as Y.
Yeah.
And that delta between who you are now and who you want to become can be scary for a lot of people because most people might not live up to that potential. So what does it mean to, I guess, what does that journey look like?
Well, one of the most important lessons I learned from my teacher, original one, was empathy. Empathy, he said, unless you can become the other person and be with them totally from their side. And we call it authentic empathy. Mm-hmm. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It's essential for every relationship in your life, your spouse, your children. In other words, in a sales situation or in a business situation, you have to have that. I get my boss. I get what somebody's trying to tell me. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to do what it takes to understand this so that I can perform, and I'll pay the price. The price is listening intently to understand it. So there's 3 levels of empathy. There's the cognitive empathy, understanding their perspective intellectually. Emotional empathy, which is feeling what they feel through neurons. In other words, I feel what you feel. And emotional empathy is feeling what they feel through mirror neurons. That's the second one.
Yep.
Compassionate empathy is caring enough to genuinely help.
And I think a lot of these levels, I always look at it like if there's a way for anyone who's watching this, I always look at it, it's how do you be the fiduciary for that individual who you're talking with at that point.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means that, like, we use a sales concept. Sometimes that means that it's better off, like, I don't think you'd be a good fit at this point, because you have so many other things that are going on. And it could be things that have nothing to do with the business. It could be personal. It could be health related. It could be so many different pillars that could be affecting you.
It's also being willing to accept not failure, but not success. Not every interaction is going to be successful.
And I think thinking about that
willingness of just vulnerability on both parts.
Well, it's like, I know every person who I'm meeting, it could be. And I think that's the beautiful part of it, is that there's that level of hope where that everyone you're going to meet, majority of them might not want to do business with you. They might not want to buy a product, but that level of hope where when you meet the right person at the right time, the right opportunity, everything just kind of automatically moves together. And it's almost like you mentioned earlier, it's almost like everything clicks. But sometimes you have to be able to understand that it's not about what you want, it's what's best for the other person.
Well, part of this was the competency. To me, the competency is having the knowledge that I know I can help this customer. Mm-hmm. I know I can help them with their issue. Now, that's where, unless you have that empathy and come from that space of, I know I can help, then you have a goal. Then you have a clear goal that my job is to make sure they understand how we can help them, how it's going to change their life for the better, so I can avoid the rejection. Because I know a lot of people aren't going to understand much of the stuff that we do from the standpoint of refrigeration or whatever. So I have to build that trust and confidence so they understand I'm not here to sell.
Mm-hmm. And also the empathy, everybody can practice empathy, whether you're in a leadership position or a management position or not. Empathy is one of those skill sets, just like gratitude, that you can practice every single day. And in many different cases. And you talk about a few different, practices, one with your spouse, one with your children, and one at work. But I think let's look at the one at work, like, what does it mean practicing empathy at work?
So there's the three categories we said: cognitive, emotional, and compassionate. So cognitive means understand you're overwhelmed with this new process. So that's understanding. Sometimes understanding is the booby prize because it doesn't result in anything. It's just understanding. Okay, it's knowledge. Whereas emotional, you kind of feel their pain without any judgment. That's the whole thing of judging is what a lot of people are afraid of. That's why salespeople are afraid of being judged. They're afraid they're judging themselves usually. I suck at this, or I'm not good at this. Okay, well, that's you. You're good at this. You're just not willing to say to yourself that I'm up to here and I need to learn to hear. But
do you think people is because they attach that if I'm a really good sales professional, I should be making, let's say, I'm going to use a figure, let's say at least $500,000 a year.
Yeah.
So if I'm not making $500,000 a year, then I don't think I'm a good sales professional. But again, you put that number in your mind because for whatever reason. So like, do you think that could be a component to it, where there's a certain level of an expectation?
So let me give you an analogy for that. So what you're talking about is winning the game, which is, you said, a money thing. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not making enough money. So imagine in baseball, somebody's up at bat. When you're with a customer, you're up at bat. Okay. Do you worry about where you're going to make at the end of the year at that point? Or do you worry about hitting a single or double or whatever?
Exactly.
Keep your eye on the ball. The process is the key. Sometimes you'll hit the ball and you'll get a single or double or home run.
100% right. I agree with you.
So judging yourself during the process is the problem.
Because the process...
Letting go. Just let it go. Trust yourself. You've practiced this. You know your craft. You know your product. All you have to do is execute. Your job is to hit the damn ball and do the best job presenting so that you can communicate the value to that prospect. That's where you hit a home run, a single, double, whatever. If you can communicate it to a team, a group, because sometimes you're up at bat. There's a guy on first, second, third. They're all trying to keep you from hitting the ball.
No, for sure. And I think that a lot of these lessons that you've already just touched on, in the first couple chapters of your book have been, I think going to be very profoundly impactful to everybody, whether you're in sales, whether you're an individual who's just trying to master more of that inner game, right? The inner game of life. So thank you very much, Emre, for providing your thoughts, and we look forward to, seeing how
we can go through some of these chapters, because each one has its own specific learning. In other words, these are all not, I learned this one thing. These are more like, these all are integrated. There's a lesson for confidence. There's a lesson for goals. There's a lesson for inner security. How do I build my inner security so when I am present at some interaction, I don't have to worry about?
Well, it's almost like, I wonder, like, if you're in a situation and you have almost like a playbook for a situation that you're in. For example, like, if you're in a situation where you have to make certain calls, right? And you just think about that. Well, I have a level of fear right now that if I'm going to call these executives at this company, that they might tell me X, Y, Z. But if you start to really think about that and you're able to digest that, then that's going to be very beneficial to you. But so anyways, Emre.
So that makes me think of, you have to kind of take a deep breath, maybe 5. Say, okay, I got to call this person. I have this apprehension myself. That's your stuff, your story. That's not about them. You're more worried about what's going to happen if I make the call. You have to trust yourself that once that person picks up, your inner confidence will take over and will know what to say. So you have to visualize the end result. So visualizing the end result is the customer saying, "Hey, thank you. Thanks for calling me. This is really informative. I want to learn more, and I want to know, I think you can help me." That's when you want to visualize them saying to you. And then when it comes to the money, for example, when my son was in college, I had him call up people, customers, and say, "Hey," at that time, our product was basically 100% paid for by the utility. But he was sitting there squirming and sweating, and, "Dad, I'm not good at this." I go, "Steve, you're calling people to ask them if they want what we have. Why don't we look at it another way? If you were calling them and you found their wallet, would you have a problem calling them, say, 'I found your wallet'? You wouldn't be nervous, right?" And that's sort of a trigger to make you think, I actually have their money. I'm calling them to give them their money. I'm going to make their business better because I know 100% that I can do that.
So to our viewers listening, it's a great point that Emre just mentioned, where if you're afraid to make the call, if you found that person's wallet, would you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I have your wallet here"? Or would you sit there and be nervous because you're doing them a favor, you're reaching out to provide them, because you know how valuable that wallet is, for them. It'd be valuable to me, right? If someone called me.
Because when you're calling somebody, you're thinking of yourself asking.
Yeah.
When you change that to I'm giving you the wallet, I'm giving you your money. You already paid for this.
Yeah.
So it's a little different scenario. You have to convince yourself people will pay money to solve a problem. You just have to clearly define the problem, be 100% certain that, yes, I can help with that problem.
Perfect. Well, we'll wrap this up.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much, Emre, for sharing this. And it's been a pleasure.
Great.